one point that we didn't get to with AOC, Matt, and I think it's fair, and I wish we did, because I mean this about both of them, is that one thing that you're going to get, I'm sure, in the comment section around AOC and certainly around this Bernie clip is, well, if Bernie Sanders and AOC saw all these problems, why did they go so hard for Kamala Harris? And look, I think that's more than fair. That was my position on it, to be frank. But they got for like the libs and the Democrats out there, they got exactly what they wanted out of these people. These people now are saying that, yeah, we disagreed and thought the strategy was wrong, but you know what? We think that the threat of the right is so big and so dangerous. We're going to shut our mouths about it, so that we can get them over the finish line, and then we can, take them on on day one of the administration, like the argument you get from every single person. Well, look, they did it, and y'all were so fucking bad at politics. Ran the worst campaign really imaginable, that you lost. And yeah, I think those people have a lot to say, and it's quite interesting to hear them say it, because it's very clear, I think, to a lot of people who are watching this campaign, and certainly now, the fundamental issues here. But that's all I have to say to people who are like, why now? Why now? So look, they were trying to play ball. Do I maybe disagree with that strategy? Sure. But the fact of the matter is that that's their that is their politics. That is their calculation. And maybe I disagree with it. Doesn't stop them from being absolutely right about a lot of these things here. So this is Bernie Sanders on the Daily. This first clip, we got two clips here. Let's just play this first one, because it's pretty interesting. This is, if I believe this is about the working class.
As a result, they came off as defending the status quo. And I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that Kamala Harris was asked repeatedly what she would do differently in this campaign, and pretty much said she didn't think anything needed to be done different.
Wait, sorry, Matt. I know we got to get to, but we haven't really hit her on this yet enough. I mean, we hit her on that live when she said that, but that was probably that is going to go down, I think, as like the defining moment of that political campaign, right? Am I wrong about that?
No, it was like a moment of like, if your significant other's been cheating on you and you're like, anything you want to talk about? Yeah. And you like nothing, for a guy who, like, Kamala, no one would be asking you that question if he wasn't insanely unpopular, like apocalyptically so. You do. Yeah. Okay.
And funnily enough, too, they've all just been shitting on her since, too. The loyalty didn't even matter. All right, let's get to
She was worse than Biden.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how bad that campaign was. But all right, let's get here. And I'm sorry, like where did this? I'm saying, it's like where did this amnesia come about Kamala Harris? So like I don't understand. I mean, I know it was just like negative enforcement of her because of how miserable the Biden campaign was. But did everyone forget just how miserable at politics she was when she first ran? I don't know.
Look, I mean, that's the thing. Like, politics will never learn that lesson, because it's like a product. If you keep bringing it to market, at some point it might catch. Like RFK, the original, was apparently just crappy. He got a sidebar. I know that and we'll have much more coverage of the Trump cabinet appointments going forward. JFK put his brother in at Attorney General. And the joke was honestly very funny. People were upset about it, and he says, "Why'd you do it?" And he said, to give him a little bit of legal experience before he goes out and practices law. But he actually did it because you can't trust any of these vampires out here, and you wanted someone that had his back. And that's really the reason that Trump did it with Gates, I guess.
But dude, I mean, there's so much good. Anyway, we got to get. We're completely off track. Let's get back to this Bernie bit here. So they set it up. The conversation is Here's Bernie sort of responding to the argument that no, maybe the Dems probably did enough.
Campaign on disruption or large scale change. You seem to be suggesting that's at the heart of Trump's victory.
The point that I am making is that ordinary people are not stupid. They see what's going on in their own eyes. And if you're not even talking about the reality of what is going on, the reality of their lives, they're going to say, hey, no change is going to come. Why would I want to vote for a group of people who don't even acknowledge the reality? For example, you tell me, you follow these things.
I do.
We have today more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had in the history of this country. Did you hear a lot of discussion on that?
No.
We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare to all people is a human right, and the only major country not to provide paid family and medical leave. Did you hear much discussion on that?
Not in this campaign.
Not in this campaign. You got 20 million people in America today who are trying to get by on less than $15 an hour. Did you hear any serious discussion of the need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage?
I don't think we did.
Oh, missed that one too.
Why do you think, Senator Sanders, that Democrats didn't communicate an understanding of his pain? I mean, one of the ongoing critiques of the Democratic Party that emerged since this election is that it is a party of elites captive to college-educated coastal America, and that it's not understanding and communicating this pain because it's not living that pain.
Well, that's only half of it. It is not beholden to college-educated people. That's the wrong word.
Okay.
It is beholden to the donors who put hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into it, and to the bloody consultants out there who will end up this campaign making zillions of dollars doing their 30-second TV ads, rather than figuring out how we talk reality to ordinary people and get them involved in the political.
All right, so there's a few things to get there. I mean, I'm curious your initial reaction, Matt. But I mean, first bit's kind of classic Bernie, but I think it's just I'm happy to hear him say it. I'm happy to hear it on the New York Times Daily, which is like one of the most listened to podcasts in the country. Right? You want to talk about media reaching people, saying like, yeah, you want to talk about how you think that they were actually good on the economy, blah blah blah. Like, when did you hear about any of these kind of issues? Acknowledging that people aren't stupid. Yeah, I mean, I thought again, all the diagnoses there were really great.
I mean, it's like hearing Freebird, like when he starts. Did you hear anything about that tone of voice? It's not a mystery why this guy captured people's hearts on these issues, because it's so funny, the uptalk of whoever that guy. Like, do you think like they're not like, yeah, dummy? That's what he's been saying this entire fucking time. Of course he thinks that. He knows that. You should know that at this point.
They should all know this.
James Carville is starting to think that at this point. Like, yeah, because, I mean, yeah, look at rent. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that, like, just that one issue, just rent, nowhere in this country that can also employ you is capable of finding you an affordable place to live as well. And we're acting like this is vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
no, I mean, totally. And I think the second part of that clip is really excellent. That's why I kept it going a little bit longer. Was when Bernie sort of pushed back against, it just being like college stuff, right? Don't get me wrong. I think that there certainly isn't, a part of it where like college culture stuff, probably doesn't help the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party donors would much rather blame. And when they talk about college, they're talking about, oh, these young activists who like care about this or that issue. No. Bernie's like, no, it's the donors and it's the consultants and it's the rich. And I think that's actually like, even amongst left wingers and who are sort of sympathetic to like our perspective, Matt, I think that is actually becoming too much of the focus that can sort of pull away from a focus on the problem and the wrong the Democratic Party, coming from the rich, coming from the donors, coming from the consultants to, oh, you know what, these like, young activists or these people with college degrees are, whining about this or that, right? Which is, again, a very convenient narrative for people like Matthew Iglesias, who it turns out is like the guy being read by all of these people, who is now trying to take this victory lap. It's like, well, I've been telling everybody for the past 4 years this, and they never listened to me. It's like, no, they have been listening to you, fucking idiot.
It's in the Washington Post. It's in the Washington Post that they passed around your articles, specifically your advice on Build Back Better negotiations, which was, if maybe this is too big of a reduction, but if memory serves, it was cave to Joe Manchin and don't apply pressure on him and respect him a lot. Maybe that's unfair, Maddie, but the idea that like this is all lefties, like exactly, it's in the Washington Post that they thought you were a public normie liberal like Joe Biden.
So I think that's a great first bit here. Let's listen to the second bit here, Matt, because I think this is also a very powerful one, because this gets, I think, like, it's crazy that we're having this conversation. Well, let's preamble this a little bit because it's crazy that we're having this conversation again and again and again and again. The same thing that happened after Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton, right? Where all this talk, instead of looking at maybe the reasons why Hillary Clinton lost this election, why maybe the Democratic Party needs to look towards the movements that might be able to reinvigorate it, that might be able to bring a populist politics into this movement. There was just a commitment to one narrative and one narrative only. The United States of America is a uniquely racist and sexist country, and it would never in a million years elect a woman. Now, that narrative needs to die because it is used not as a way to help understand the electorate, not as a way to help understand America, not as a way to even win. It is used as a way to excuse and protect those same donors and consultants who are getting worse and worse and worse at winning elections. And now people should have cared about it in 2016, in 2017, when you were seeing white working class people suffering and saying, we need to do something different. But for some reason, there were sections of the left who said, hey, you know what? We can ignore that, right? That's the price. That's a price we're willing to pay for this or that, right?
Life expectancy dropped.
And yes, exactly. And look, and so people should have cared about it then. And it's a false choice. This is what Bernie's going to get to, but it is a false choice to pick between fighting for working class people and fighting on all these other fronts. But it has been tremendously effective on the national scale and even amongst the left at derailing, at destroying the ability of doing class solidarity. And you know what's really ironic about all this, Matt, is what we're going to get from the Democratic Party, and their leaders after losing to Trump is not going to be, hey, you know what, maybe we should combine, some of these politics and come up with a winning solution. It wouldn't even be my politics, but maybe that was what a smart person would do in the situation. Those same people who have been lecturing everybody for the past 8 years about how the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, blah, 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 are these racist bros. Those are the people who are going to say, we need to get more transphobic. We probably need to get a little bit more homophobic. And we certainly need to get a hell of a lot more racist, right? It's that section of the fucking party that's going to be doing that.
And it's not really the Bernie bro left that has trouble doing both,
No.
or the left throughout history. Often it's an issue that needs to be navigated, but it's often one like whether it's the North Dakota or Minnesota farm labor stuff, whether it's communists in Alabama, like these sorts of things. I mean, your work has been recently researching a lot of this. This is something that the sort of like radical left side of things has always been part of the tradition. The people who don't do both are the people who think that you should be satisfied with, say, a Kamala Harris breaking a glass ceiling. Yeah. People have some appetite for that in good times. When people can't pay rent or they're under the barrel, I'm sorry, it is insulting. It's just insulting to expect them to like, which classes of people are excited by which different sorts of outreaches, because I think the people that do identity politics and do both often mention things like public provisioning of certain types of goods and services, so you're not discriminated based on, say, wealth or something like that. Like, yeah, go ahead, David.
No. I mean, I totally agree with you, man. And I just wanted to add that, like, again, this idea that like the American people, in particular, like the American working class, are just dupes who are so bamboozled by the world they don't really understand what's going on is just so ludicrous. And on like the issue of like quote unquote, Matt, breaking the glass ceiling, right? People, this idea that like a working class person, be they white, Hispanic, black, etc., can't see that Kamala Harris doesn't represent them is just absurd, right? Like what I'm saying is that like people who live in this country have been learning and seeing that like the American the American ruling class, the American ruling class can be exceptionally diverse, right? And people have had the experience of having bosses of all different kinds of backgrounds, and they actually have more consciousness of their position, right? And seeing that like, oh, the person running for president is like not from our class or our life or our community, and it's that reality is reintroduced and cemented by the fact that the Kamala Harris campaign basically ran a campaign surrounding themselves with celebrities and the rich and the powerful.
And there's word that Obama is worried about his legacy in one regard, that he was doing this the last few months, basically shaming people. And this sorry, man, like he hurt his legacy in a way people like us and all of the little C-SPAN archive dives could never do when they tune in for politics once every 4 years and they're saying, come on, get excited. Actually, you have to be excited that like maybe someone down the street who you don't know might be getting medication that they wouldn't have otherwise have gotten. Like you're cooked, man.
Let's play the second bit here.
And in your second critique of Democrats in this moment was around identity. And I want to read what you said about identity politics. And just to define this phrase, identity politics, I think what you mean is a focus on racial identity, sexual identity, among others. This is what you said. You said, it's not just Kamala Harris. It's a Democratic Party which increasingly has become a party of identity politics, rather than understanding that the vast majority of people in this country are working class. This trend of workers leaving the Democratic Party, and you return to this theme, started with whites, and it has accelerated to Latinos and blacks. When I hear you say that, I hear you saying, and I want to make sure I'm interpreting it correctly, that the Democratic Party, including over the past year or so in this campaign, has turned off many working class Americans who feel that the way the Democratic Party, especially its leaders, talk about things like race and gender and trans people leaves them feeling alienated from that conversation, being policed and even scolded by it for not using the right words, for not accepting something like trans youth on sports teams. Is that what you mean?
Well, that's part of it, but I think the more important point is being ignored. Their needs are being ignored. And let me be very clear. Where the Democratic Party deserves a lot of credit over the last many decades is, in fact, leading the effort for women's rights. And we have come a long way until Roe v. Wade, as a matter of fact. And the Democratic Party deserves a lot of credit for fighting for civil rights, for fighting for gay rights, to fighting to end bigotry, all forms of bigotry in this country. Democrats were right on that struggle. But you can go forward in both directions. You can say, we are going to fight for a bigotry-free America. That's an ongoing struggle. We made progress. We got a long way to go. But at the same time, we can stand up for the working class of this country, which, by the way, happens to be significantly African-American and Latino and women, who are the bulk of the working class in this country. So it's not either or, it's going forward in both directions. That is a winner. Some of the Democrat pundits say, well, you know, the problem is all of these Trump people are racist and they're sexist and they're homophobes. Well, no doubt that some of them are, and that's true. Most of them are not, and I suspect many of them actually voted for the first black president in American history, Barack Obama. All right? But they are, in large numbers, working class people, and we have got to speak to them in an economic perspective that is clear and straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, there's some meta stuff I was going to get to, but I mean, pretty good, right?
Yeah, it reminds you I made this the other day. These new hats. Maybe we should make these in the merch store.
Yeah.
The economy is already great hat, folks. Because that's really where we are. Like,
that was the Kamala Harris strategy.
And there are a lot of people pointing, like, I think it's like such an obvious red herring that it feels kind of feeble with the pointing to trans people or Latinx users. Because that's so clearly not what this is about. It's mentioned in Republican ads.
Mm-hmm.
There's no.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't mean to like get in the weeds about this. I totally agree. With what you're getting at, but at the same time, the very first thing that the Kamala Harris campaign does is say, what if we balkanize all of our supporters into like specific ethnic groups, right? So like, yes, was it necessarily like a backlash against Latinx and trans stuff? No, but like that stuff is 100% the 2017 plus like identity politics.
That's absolutely true, and I had actually blanked that out of my memory.
No,
but
everyone forgot. But that was like the not only was it something that they did, like that was like the first thing that they did. You know what I mean? That was like the beginning of the campaign. What is Kamala Harris campaign going to look like differently from Joe Biden? It was that.
and also what they were doing wasn't like even getting together to knock doors, because they're all diffuse across the country.
Yeah, they're all on Zoom.
What they can do is get their credit cards out though, and put $50 towards ads that would ultimately fail. But hey, those media buyers and sellers, $1 billion to business, not bad.